Hello, and welcome to my take. And welcome to my spoiler review on episode 8 of season 2 of House of the Dragon. Now, this is the final video in my House of the Dragon season 2 review series. And if you'd like to catch up on the previous episodes in this series, then the links to which can be found either on your screen now or in the description box below. And for anyone that has been waiting for this, I apologise for the delay in getting this video out. Without further ado, let's discuss the series finale of Season 2. I personally enjoyed this finale a lot. I was expecting it to be a big battle or something, especially as we've had tastes of this throughout the season already, such as the battle at Rook's Rest in Episode 4. But instead, this episode sets up the wars to come in Season 3, as well as providing satisfying conclusions to many of this season's storylines. I usually leave him till later in these videos, but on this occasion, let's start with Daemon's plotline. We finally get some clarity on where his whole character arc at Harrenhal was headed. There's lots of levels that we can analyse this moment at, so I'm going to break them down one at a time. Firstly, on a character level, this moment reveals to us the journey that Daemon has been guided down by Alice Rivers. Daemon has always been self-interested and power-hungry for the throne, and the visions he experienced across the season all start to challenge his belief systems. Each of the visions acts as a way of breaking down Daemon's mind, making him feel guilt he did to Rhaenyra, and enhancing that by these visions showing him a younger, more innocent Rhaenyra, the Rhaenyra he corrupted early on in Season 1. To break him further, the visions he has of his brother Viserys, arguably the only figure the show ever shows Daemon caring for, are visions designed to crush his ambition for the crown. The final vision with Viserys in episode 7 being the greatest example of this. As I discussed in my episode 7 review, the choice to show Viserys at his most decrepit state acts as a visual reminder to Daemon and the audience of the burden of the crown. The show also suggests Daemon to be skeptical of the supernatural, hence why he is so disturbed by his earlier visions, as they fall outside the bounds of reason for him. So it's only after all these visions, after he's been crushed as a character, that he is finally ready to experience the vision that the Weirwood tree provides him with. All of this is remarked upon by Alice Rivers, who makes a point about how much he's changed.
All your life you've sought to command your own fate. But today you are ready.
It's never made clear to us whether she was the one behind the visions or whether she was just perceptive to them due to the fact that she is sensitive to the supernatural and was guided by it to lead Daemon to a state of readiness to experience what the Weirwood tree had to show him. The other mystery in this moment was the figure shown behind the tree for a split second. What these details do is leave the show's supernatural elements veiled in ambiguity, which adds to the suspense and mystery surrounding this fantasy world. It's a similar technique to what we see in the early seasons of Game of Thrones, where due to the lack of dialogue from them and the fact that the show doesn't explain what they are in any way, the White Walkers were able to feel so creepy. In the same way that many horror films utilize the dark as a device for creating fear, the same is true in a story's writing. Because if you leave the audience with loads of unanswered questions around a mysterious threat, their mind will start to fill in the blanks and in the process, enhance the feeling of fear they have in the story. So I really like the fact that not all the details are explicitly told to us. We're only fed what we need to know, and we're not fed the full details of the supernatural in Westeros. And from this, we must analyse the vision that Daemon sees. As a massive fan of Game of Thrones, this moment was incredibly rewarding to watch and legitimately sent chills all over me, especially when the White Walker showed up for a split second. Getting to see the three-eyed raven, as well as Daenerys Targaryen and her baby dragons from around the end of Season 1 of Game of Thrones, was an epic moment, and it connected these two shows together in a way that hasn't really been done to that level before. So it was super cool to see. It also raises further questions around the Weirwood trees, as if memory serves me correctly, in Game of Thrones we only ever see these trees show people the past and not the future, which either suggests that this particular Weirwood tree is special, or, perhaps the more likely alternative, that Daemon is special. I haven't read the book Fire and Blood yet, however one detail I do know is that there is a connection between the three-eyed raven and Daemon. I'm going to leave it deliberately vague here, as I'm sure there are some who would like to watch this show without the book spoiling it for them. I'm generally of that mindset myself, for instance. But the spoiler I do know reveals that there is a connection, and if you want to know more, then I'd suggest looking it up if you're good with that being spoiled for you. This moment also showcases Helaena Targaryen in his vision, which is notable because she's not a figure that Daemon is particularly close to, so her presence seems to suggest she has a wider purpose. This is only backed up by the scene that directly follows this, where Helaena talks to Aemond and frightens him by seeming to know his fate with a strong degree of clarity and conviction, thereby suggesting that she too has had some sort of inclination for the supernatural. So I'll be interested to see how Season 3 will explore this going forwards, and what role she'll play in the future events of the show. The vision also shows Daemon that it is destiny for Rhaenyra to sit the Iron Throne, and that this seemingly has to happen, which is something that convinces him to bend the knee to her later in the episode, seemingly completely abandoning his idea to turn against her, something he seems contemplative about when he has his conversation with Sir Alfred earlier in the episode. These visions seem to show Daemon that his life is part of a much grander story, and give him some perspective on the scale of his place in that. There's also a degree to which this scene can be read as very meta, because in referring to this all as a story, and him being just one part in it, this is true of the show and book as works of art too, which is something only enhanced by the particular design they went for the face of this particular weirwood tree. Because as I mentioned in my video last week, the face is designed to look like the author of this franchise, George R.R. Martin. So in this way, you can view this scene as George R.R. Martin, the legitimate god of the franchise, being portrayed as a god within the franchise, telling Daemon of his place in the Game of Thrones House of Dragon universe. So in having that as the face design for the tree, it adds in a really cool additional level of self-referentiality to this show. So all in all, a really cool moment with an awful lot to unpack in that single short scene. I also really like how Matt Smith plays Daemon a little bit differently after this moment. Daemon seems ever so slightly warmer and kinder, and Smith manages to do this in a way that still fits in line with Daemon's character and mannerisms, which is a testament to his acting abilities. The other major moment in this episode was the scene between Alicent and Rhaenyra at the end. It was a very poignant scene that was beautifully lit and shot, so hats off to the director of photography for this episode, Catherine Goldschmidt, who also worked on episode 3 of this season. The choices made on where to place the camera for what moment really enhanced this scene, such as in the moment where Alicent is trying to decide whether or not to give up her son, by having the camera placed to the side of her, with Olivia Cooke facing almost away from the camera. It adds to the suspense as we can't quite see what she's thinking and feeling in this moment, until the moment she decides, and then the camera pans back to her face to show us what she's feeling. The choice to not have any music in this scene too really enhances it, as it places all the focus on the actors, and Emma Darcy and Olivia Cooke absolutely deliver on this front. We, the audience, feel every pause, every quivered word charged with deep emotion. For this entire scene, my eyes were glued to the screen even more than usual, as it was so compelling to watch. There were some little details in Cooke's performance especially that stood out to me, such as the fact that when Alicent is getting stressed midway through the scene, she takes to biting her thumbnail exactly the same way that the young Alicent does way back in early season 1. It's a detail that most may overlook, but it really enhances this moment for those who do notice it, as it shows Olivia Cooke is giving 100% into ensuring her performance continues to align with the young Alicent performance given by Emily Carey in early season 1. Even after so many years, Alicent still has elements of herself and mannerisms that never changed. This scene is also a great role reversal from their scene together in episode 3 of this season. In episode 3, Rhaenyra takes the massive risk of entering into Alicent's territory to try and reason with her, and she comes to find a dismissive and cold Alicent, who is seemingly long past the idea of peace between them. By this episode, the roles are reversed. Alicent enters into Rhaenyra's territory, putting herself in great danger, to plead with Rhaenyra to try and settle things between them, only to find a much colder Rhaenyra. These scenes, being reversals of one another, tie the season up neatly, much in the same way that certain motifs seem to run through this story throughout, which is the repeated idea of a son for a son, which feeds off the eye for an eye from the tail end of Season 1, and then from there into sons, following what Aemon does to Lucerys at the end of Season 1. There's a lot of twinning in this story, even literally with the two brothers Sir Eric and Sir Arek, who die in episode 2 of this season. The difference between this encounter between the two of them and the last is that this time, Rhaenyra has everything she needs to win this war. She has more dragons and dragon riders to use them. She has an army, support for her cause, both from the other houses and even from many of the people from within King's Landing. She's on track to win this war, but at the likely cost of thousands of lives. And it's at this moment that Alicent arrives, and through their conversation, is able to present Rhaenyra with an alternative by offering to betray and give up her son. Which son Alicent's willing to sacrifice currently remains unclear, but it's implied that she means Aegon, as he is the first in line on that side of the family to rule. The issue with this plan, of course, unknown to Alicent at this time, is that Larys Strong has escaped King's Landing with Aegon, who are on the run to Essos to prevent Aemon from trying to kill Aegon, which means she won't be able to deliver on her promise. This will all likely catastrophically backfire. It's interesting to see the bond that Larys is so sincerely trying to forge between himself and Aegon. This is likely all part of his plan to become Aegon's new hand, should they eventually win this war. However, given how Larys has also shown a degree of care and emotion towards Aegon too, it's possible that he may actually care for him, perhaps seeing himself in Aegon, given that they are both crippled and as a result, suffer similar treatment in that world. Another notable scene in this episode was the one between Alyn of Hull and his father, Corlys Velaryon. This moment is an opportunity for Alyn to vent at Corlys being an absent father, and for how differently Corlys treated his legitimate sons in comparison to his illegitimate ones. It's a well-written and performed scene by both Abubakar Salim and Steve Toussaint. It continues Corlys' character arc where he starts to realise the mistakes he made in life, such as his neglect for his wife Rhaenys, in the sense that he kept going off to war for his own glory. In this episode, as well, we see him rename his ship to honour her memory.
But my ship is no longer the Sea Snake. She was a testament to my own glory. I've given her a new name. The Queen Who Never Was.
Again, showing the journey that this character is going on. His scene with Alyn of Hull is another example of him realising his mistakes and being forced to confront them, no matter how much he doesn't want to. This moment also ends without any closure for either of them, so will likely be an element that continues to run into the story for Season 3. The scene with Sir Criston Cole was brief but pertinent, showcases how defeated he is by the prospect of a war with dragons. Long gone is the arrogant man from the start of this season. Following what he witnessed at Rook's Rest, he's forever changed. I love the fact that this show continues to demonstrate the changes to his character consistently. In terms of behind-the-scenes filmmaking, sadly for the stunt team, no Dragonfire this week. But I'm very sure there'll be plenty more next season. But nevertheless, there are still some cool details about how this episode was made, such as the fact that they had members of the crew who worked on costumes and prosthetics for the White Walkers in Game of Thrones, meaning that they were able to ensure that the White Walker looked as consistent as possible with the ones that we've seen before. The monkey at the start of the episode was also very real, and not CGI to my surprise. It was something that Tywin Lannister actor Jefferson Hall wasn't particularly keen on.
We had a monkey, yeah, Rosie. The one issue was Jefferson doesn't like monkeys.
And I went up to the monkey handler and I said, is the monkey going to be okay? And she said, oh yeah, she's lovely, but if you look her in the eye, she'll bite you in the face.
The monkey did not listen.
There was one point where Rosie started veering off towards Jefferson. Jefferson could hear the handler saying, no Rosie, no Rosie, no Rosie.
So I survived that, but that was intimidating.
Also, a detail you might not think too much about from a filmmaking perspective is the dinner sequence. However, for the Ulf actor, Tom Bennett, more was required than you might think.
Bring on the birds!
Tom ate 2 birds a take.
I said more of these little birds.
We're on bird number 8, 9.
He ate so many quails. There comes a point in the day where you say to yourself, OK, I'm being paid to eat birds today.
16, 17 now.
And I'm going to keep doing it until I'm sick.
He didn't look like he was suffering, but maybe he's just a really good actor.
20.
I'm going to make you all think I'm so hungry that you want to eat the little birds.
24.
At some point, he's going to have to stop.
It was over 30. 30 quails.
They also developed a new type of rigging for the camera, for some of those wide shots that close out the season at the very end, which again shows how the production team behind House of the Dragon are always willing to push the boundaries of filmmaking to the cutting edge to ensure that they create the best show possible. In conclusion then, I have thoroughly enjoyed House of the Dragon Season 2. Not only this episode, but every episode of it. It's been a strong, well-written, beautifully shot and performed, and excellently well-designed piece of art that continues to be one of the strongest and best shows put to screen. I thoroughly enjoyed reviewing it week by week, watching the episodes, and then watching and learning all about how each episode has been made. I've learned a lot about filmmaking in general from it, and I will miss this show whilst it's off air. It'll likely be another long time between seasons, but I'm honestly good with that, because this show continues to prove that entertainment made with passion, hard work, talent and love does still exist, and continues to thrive with popularity from the audience. So this has been my take on House of the Dragon Season 2. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. And a massive thanks to anyone who's been following this review series too. And if you like what you've seen, then I hope I can continue to deliver you with content that you find enjoyable. And now that this season is finished, I can turn to more variation of genres of films and shows on this channel. So hopefully I'm able to continue to create content that you enjoy. Thank you.